They say your wedding day should be the happiest day of your life. Mine started like a dream and turned into a nightmare within hours. I stood in front of the mirror, my hands trembling slightly as I adjusted my veil. The soft hum of wedding preparations buzzed outside the bridal suite, but inside, everything was still. My best friend, Ava, was supposed to be here by now. She was my maid of honor, my ride or die. The one person I trusted without question. Until today. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 29 years old, a marketing executive who's been working my way up the ladder for years. I wasn't born rich, but I've always been determined, practical, and careful with who I let into my heart. Falling in love with Adam Mitchell wasn't part of my original life plan. He was charming, successful, and for nearly 3 years, my everything. He proposed in Paris under the Eiffel Tower. Cheesy? Maybe. But I cried like a little girl. We planned the wedding of our dreams together, down to the tiniest detail. Every napkin folded just right, every table labeled with a place we had visited together. And Ava? She was there every step of the way. She helped me pick my dress. She coordinated the bridesmaids. She even handled the cake tasting when I was too swamped with work. There wasn't a part of the wedding she didn't touch. But now, with just 30 minutes until I walked down the aisle, Ava was nowhere to be found. Maybe she's helping with guests, my mother offered gently. You know how detail-oriented she is. I nodded, forcing a smile, but something in my gut twisted. Then the phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. No name, just one photo. Ava, in bed with Adam. My breath caught. It wasn't just any photo. It was taken just last night. The timestamp was clear, August 1st, the eve of my wedding. She was wearing the pink satin robe I gave her during our bachelorette trip, and he wasn't even trying to hide his face. Smiling, shirtless, in our hotel suite. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I froze. The world around me dissolved into static. The laughter outside, the string quartet warming up, the scent of fresh roses, it all faded into the background. How do you process betrayal like that? By your fiancé, by your best friend. On your wedding day. I wanted to believe it was fake, a cruel prank, someone trying to ruin me. But the background of the photo was unmistakably real. Our suite. The same suite I had just walked out of hours ago. And then came the knock. It was my cousin Rachel. Her eyes widened when she saw my face. Em, are you okay? I didn't answer. I just handed her the phone. She looked at the photo, then back at me. Do you want me to shut it down? I shook my head slowly. No, I'm going to walk down that aisle, but not to say I do. Not the way they expect. Rachel nodded without asking questions. She'd always had my back. But as I sat down to breathe, trying to collect myself, I heard a murmur through the walls. Whispers. Then came the sound that made my blood run cold. Heels, clicking. Slow, deliberate, too confident. And then the door creaked open. It was her, Ava, wearing white. Not just any white dress, but a floor-length silk gown with a deep neckline and crystal embroidery, like a bride, like me. She smiled, as if she hadn't shattered my world just hours before. Emily, she said softly, you look stunning. I stared at her, speechless. You're probably wondering about the dress, she continued, walking in without invitation. I thought, since I'm your maid of honor, I should match the theme. White is so pure, don't you think? Her voice dripped with venom hidden behind sugary sweetness. I finally stood. You slept with him, I said, voice barely above a whisper. She blinked. What? You slept with Adam, last night. Her smile didn't falter. If anything, it grew. I didn't think you'd find out before the ceremony, she said. But since you have, well, I guess the secret's out. And just like that, it was all out in the open. The betrayal, the lies, the knife she plunged into my back, still warm. You planned this, I whispered, from the start. Ava shrugged. You were always so perfect, always one step ahead. The career, the house, the perfect guy. I just wanted something for myself. You took everything from me. She tilted her head. No, Emily. I took what you never really had. If he loved you, he wouldn't have come to me. You should thank me. I showed you the truth. There it was, the smugness, the cruelty, the absolute lack of remorse. I wanted to slap her, I wanted to scream. But instead I smiled. Not because I was okay, but because she had no idea what was coming next. Because what she didn't know was that she had just stepped into a trap of her own making. I wasn't just the bride. I was the storm she never saw coming. If Ava thought I would fall apart, cry, or cancel the wedding, she didn't know me at all. What she didn't realize was that her little game had just pushed me into the most dangerous version of myself, the one who has nothing left to lose. I stood in front of her, heart racing, head spinning, but posture steady. "You know," I said, my voice calm, "you should really go fix your lipstick. Looks a little smudged." She blinked, confused. For a second, I saw it, the flicker of doubt behind her eyes. I walked past her and out the door, my veil trailing behind me like a curtain hiding a queen ready to reveal her throne. The ballroom was packed with over 200 guests. Cameras were flashing, laughter filled the air, and music played softly in the background. No one knew that beneath the surface, the entire event was seconds away from unraveling. But I had a plan, and it started with walking down that aisle, not to marry Adam, but to expose him. I passed through the hallway, my heels clicking against the polished marble floor, and my heart felt strangely steady. Controlled. Like I'd been preparing for this moment my entire life without even knowing it. As I reached the entrance of the main hall, Rachel was waiting. Her eyes searched mine. "Are you sure you want to do this?" she whispered. I nodded once. "Absolutely." The music shifted. The soft notes of the wedding march began to play. The crowd rose. Adam stood at the altar looking every bit the perfect groom in his tailored tuxedo. His face lit up when he saw me, but there was something off, like he knew something wasn't quite right, but couldn't put his finger on it. Then he saw Rachel walking beside me. His smile faltered. I held my head high and walked gracefully down the aisle. But in my mind, I wasn't walking toward my future. I was walking toward justice. When I reached the altar, Adam stepped forward and took my hands. "You look incredible," he whispered. I smiled. "You have no idea." The officiant began his speech. Standard words about love, commitment, and unity. I nodded politely, pretending to listen, but my focus was locked on the moment I had planned for. "Now, if anyone has any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony," the officiant said, "speak now or forever hold your peace." And that was my cue. I let go of Adam's hands and turned to face the audience. "I do," I said clearly, my voice cutting through the silence like a blade. Gasps filled the room. Adam blinked. "Emily, what are you doing?" I smiled. "I'm saving everyone a lot of trouble." I turned back to the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed with this wedding, there's something I think you all should see." I gestured toward the back of the room, and Rachel on cue walked forward holding a tablet. She handed it to the AV technician who was standing next to the projector. Seconds later, the photo lit up on the giant screen behind us. Ava, Adam, together, half naked, in my bridal suite. The silence was deafening. Mothers gasped, fathers whispered, guests stared, mouths open. Adam's face turned white. Ava, who had snuck into the back of the room, let out a sharp breath. "Emily, stop this." But I wasn't done. "That photo was taken last night," I said, "while I was asleep 2 rooms away. While our family and friends were preparing to celebrate love and commitment, these two were celebrating betrayal." Adam stepped forward. "It wasn't like that." I held up a hand. "Save it." Then I turned back to the crowd. I was going to marry this man. I trusted him. I trusted her. Ava was supposed to be my maid of honor, my best friend. Instead, she became the snake in my garden. I could feel the tears trying to rise, but I forced them down. I won't stand here and pretend nothing happened. I won't smile through lies, and I won't let either of them take this day from me. I looked around the room. This isn't just a wedding. It's a reckoning. A hush settled. People didn't know whether to leave or stay. And then, from the back of the room, someone clapped. Just once, then twice, until a slow, steady applause built throughout the crowd. I was stunned. It wasn't mockery. It was support. My cousin, my childhood friend, even my college professor who had flown in from out of state, they all clapped, some even standing. Adam looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him. Ava tried to slip out, but not before I called out, "Leaving so soon? I thought white was your color." Laughter rippled through the room. And then I did something no one expected. I picked up the mic and said, "The reception is still on. There's food, music, and champagne. The wedding is off, but the party? It's just beginning." The band, slightly confused but responsive, began to play an upbeat tune. I turned and walked off the altar, head high, heart racing. I wasn't just reclaiming my day, I was rewriting the ending. And little did Ava know, this was just the beginning of her public unmasking. Because I had more than just a photo. I had secrets she thought I'd never find out. The ballroom buzzed with murmurs. Guests lingered near the buffet tables, unsure if they were at a scandal or a celebration. The string quartet, clearly shaken, transitioned into something livelier to match my declaration. The wedding was off, but the party had just begun. I floated through it all like a ghost. People came up to me, offering hugs, condolences, even awkward praise for my grace under fire. But I wasn't listening. Not really. My eyes were scanning, searching for her. Ava. She had disappeared the second I dropped the bombshell at the altar. But I knew her. Knew her pride wouldn't let her vanish for long. She wanted the last word. She always did. Rachel slipped in beside me, holding 2 champagne glasses. "That was savage," she said, handing me one. "You okay?" I nodded. "Better than I expected." "But I'm not finished yet," she raised a brow. "You have more?" "Oh, honey," I said. "That photo was the appetizer." She grinned. "Damn right, let's serve the main course." I had spent the past 6 weeks growing suspicious. At first, it was just little things. Ava answering Adam's texts when he left his phone on the table, weird glances exchanged when they thought I wasn't looking, her sudden interest in helping him with our honeymoon plans. And when I finally began to snoop, the pieces fell together faster than I expected. The hotel receipt from their weekend getaway in the name of corporate team building. The text thread she forgot to delete when she borrowed my iPad, and the voicemail she left, drunk, laughing, telling him, "I can't wait until you finally call it off with her." I'd saved it all, but I'd waited for today. I wasn't just confronting a betrayal. I was making a statement. Ava finally appeared again about 20 minutes into the reception, pretending like she had just stepped out to calm down. Her hair was perfect, makeup freshly applied, still in white. She walked straight up to me like nothing had happened. "You humiliated me," she hissed under her breath. "You humiliated yourself," I said calmly. "This was supposed to be your big day, and you turned it into a circus." I laughed. "No, Ava, you turned it into a circus the moment you slipped into my fiancé's bed." She rolled her eyes. "You're being dramatic. You always do this." "Oh no," I cut her off. "This is me being strategic." Then I turned to the DJ and nodded. He switched the track. A pause, a moment of silence. Then, click. My voice echoed through the room. Her voice. That voicemail. "I can't wait until you finally call it off with her," drunk Ava giggled. "She's so boring, Adam. All work and no fun. I mean, do you really want to be married to someone who schedules intimacy like a work meeting?" The room went silent again. Ava's face turned sheet white. I took the mic. "That was from 2 months ago? But there's more. I just thought you all should know the kind of maid of honor I was dealing with." I clicked a second file. This time, it was a recording of a conversation between Ava and another bridesmaid, who thankfully had come to me weeks ago in tears, apologizing for keeping Ava's secrets. "Emily's so naive," Ava had said in that one. "She thinks Adam's her forever. He told me himself. He only proposed because she was pressuring him." Gasps. A chair scraped the floor. Someone muttered, "What the hell?" Ava lunged for the mic. "This is insane. You're making me look like some monster." I stepped aside. "You made yourself look like a monster. I'm just showing everyone the mirror." She turned to storm off, but not before I said one final thing. "You can keep the dress, Ava. It suits you, white lies and all." The crowd exploded. Some were horrified. Some looked like they were watching the finale of a reality show. But me? I felt lighter. For the first time in weeks, I was breathing. Rachel hugged me tight. "You're a queen." I didn't feel like a queen, not yet. But I wasn't a victim either. I was becoming something else. Later that night, the reception took on an almost surreal tone. People stayed, they danced, they drank, as if we all needed to exorcise the poison from the day. I found myself on the balcony, finally alone, staring out over the city skyline. It was supposed to be our honeymoon night. Instead, I was standing in my wedding dress, alone, but not broken. A soft knock on the balcony door made me turn. It was Michael, Adam's older brother. Surprised? Yes, but I had always liked Michael, quiet, kind, honest, and oddly distant around me. Almost like he was hiding something. He walked over, holding 2 cups of coffee instead of champagne. "I figured you've had enough alcohol for one night." I smiled. "You figured right." He handed me a cup and leaned on the railing beside me. "You okay?" "I will be," I said. "Eventually." We sipped in silence. Then he spoke. I tried to warn Adam, told him he was throwing away the best thing that ever happened to him. I raised an eyebrow. You knew? I knew he wasn't ready, Michael said. But I didn't know about Ava. If I had. He trailed off, jaw tightening. Then he looked at me seriously. Emily, you deserve someone who doesn't flinch when things get hard. Someone who doesn't mistake strong for cold. His words surprised me. You always seemed distant. He smiled faintly. Because I liked you. Too much. And you were taken. I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't say anything. But in the quiet that followed, something shifted inside me. Maybe today had been about more than just ending a toxic engagement. Maybe it was the beginning of something else entirely. The night after the wedding that wasn't felt endless. Despite the glittering lights, the music, and the endless champagne flowing through the hotel ballroom, I felt like I was moving through fog. It wasn't pain. Not anymore. It was something deeper. Numbness. Emptiness. But beneath it, a spark had begun to ignite. The next morning, I woke up in my bridal suite alone. No husband, no wedding ring, just silence, and a growing sense of purpose. I didn't want to hide. I didn't want to escape town like so many women in my situation might have. No, I wanted to face every piece of the wreckage. Because only when you face the ashes can you start to rebuild. The first thing I did was block Adam and Ava on everything. Phone, email, socials. I deleted our engagement photos, took off the wedding dress and folded it neatly in a box. But I didn't throw it away. I wasn't ready for that just yet. The second thing I did? I made coffee. Black. No sugar, no cream, no sentimentality. And I sat down with a notepad. Because now, it was time to expose everything. What most people didn't know was that Adam and Ava's betrayal wasn't just personal. It was layered with deeper deceit. Adam was co-founder of a startup I had quietly invested in. I had put in $50,000 of my own savings, money I'd worked overtime to build, believing in his vision. He'd always insisted I stay out of the finances. It'll just stress you out, he said. I trusted him. And now I had a sick feeling in my stomach. I made a call to a friend of mine, Leah, who worked in tech investment due diligence. Within 3 hours, she confirmed what I feared. The company was nearly bankrupt. And Adam had known for months. They hadn't just used me emotionally, they had used me financially. That night, I filed legal papers to freeze my investment and began preparing for litigation. But I didn't stop there. I reached out to a journalist friend who worked for an online business watchdog site. I gave her everything, the texts, the emails, even the screenshots showing Ava using my email to approve certain investor documents when I wasn't around. Fraud. And now it was public. Within days, the article went viral. Wedding drama turns criminal. Jilted bride exposes ex-fiancé's startup scam. I was flooded with messages from strangers, investors, even former employees of Adam's company who had been too afraid to speak out. Suddenly, I wasn't the poor girl who got left at the altar. I was the woman who fought back. Meanwhile, Ava tried to do damage control online. She posted a pathetic apology video on Instagram, sitting in her living room with fake tears and the usual influencer tropes. I made a mistake. I let my emotions cloud my judgment. I never meant to hurt anyone. The comments weren't buying it. You wore white to her wedding. You're not sorry. You're sorry you got caught. You should be in jail. It was brutal and strangely satisfying. But the real twist came later that week when I got a message from someone I hadn't expected. It was from Ava's ex, Derek. We'd met once years ago, back when Ava and Derek were still together. He had seemed like a decent guy, quiet, smart, completely in love with her, until suddenly he vanished from her life. Now I knew why. Hey Emily, his message began. I saw the article. I'm sorry for what happened. I wanted you to know you're not the only one she did this to. My heart skipped. Derek and I met for coffee the next day. He told me everything. She had cheated on him, lied, manipulated him into putting her name on a business he had started, only to drain the account and ghost him. She has a pattern, he said. Ava finds people she can use. You're just the first one who ever fought back. His words lit something in me. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about accountability. I compiled everything. Derek gave a statement. Other victims came forward. I handed it all over to the journalist and the police. Ava wasn't just a bridesmaid in white. She was a professional con. And now, everyone knew it. But what about Adam? He tried to reach out once, through Michael. He says he's sorry, Michael told me. He's begging me to pass that along. I looked at him flatly. Tell him he can take his sorry and shove it into the bankruptcy papers I just filed. Michael smirked. That's the Emily I always liked. His words caught me off guard. Over the next few weeks, Michael kept showing up. First with coffee, then lunch, then quiet dinners that ended with laughter I hadn't heard in months. He wasn't trying to be a rebound. He wasn't trying to fix me. He just listened. Respected me. Respected my pain without treating me like I was broken. And slowly, the pieces of me started to come back together. One night, as we walked through the park, I asked him the question I'd been holding in. Why didn't you say something? Before all of this? He sighed. Because I thought you loved him. And I figured if you were happy, that was enough. But watching you walk down that aisle, watching what they did to you, I realized something. You weren't happy. You were just surviving. And now, you're finally living. His words stayed with me long after he dropped me off. He was right. For the first time in years, I wasn't living by someone else's script. I was writing my own. The internet doesn't forget, and neither do women like me. Women who've been broken, burned, and rebuilt with steel instead of sorrow. After the viral article dropped, Ava vanished from social media for 3 days. 3 days of silence from the girl who used to post her oat milk lattes and yoga poses like clockwork. I waited, watched, and then she cracked. She came back online with a bang. A heavily edited comeback video, full of crocodile tears and bad lighting. Ava was sitting on the floor, makeup-free, trying to look raw and remorseful. I just want to address the rumors, she began. Yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I hurt people, but I never meant for any of this to happen. She sniffled dramatically. People are threatening me. My family is getting hate. I've lost work. I've lost friends. I've lost everything. She paused, eyes blinking toward the camera like she was waiting for a cue that never came. I just want to move forward, and I hope Emily can find it in her heart to forgive me. I watched the entire 5-minute performance without blinking. Then I replayed it, not to sympathize, but to catalog her every word, her every lie. Because Ava still didn't get it. She thought she could PR spin her way out of this. But this wasn't high school, this wasn't gossip, this was exposure. With evidence, witnesses, and now a potential court case. Forgive her? She hadn't even begun to pay for what she'd done. I wasn't the only one who felt that way. The comment section under her video was a battlefield. You stole her fiancé and wore white to her wedding. Sit down. This isn't accountability, this is damage control. You're not sorry, you're just sorry we all know who you really are. Some influencers unfollowed her. A brand she partnered with issued a statement distancing themselves from the drama. A podcast that once interviewed her deleted the episode and replaced it with a new title, When Women Betray Women, Why Loyalty Still Matters. It was poetic, but poetic justice wasn't enough. Because there was one thing Ava had always been proud of, her image. She branded herself as an advocate for women in business, claimed to support female entrepreneurs. She even had a women's networking group she co-hosted monthly in downtown LA. So I reached out, not to her, but to the other co-founder of the group, Jenna. We weren't close, but we'd met once, and I remembered how uncomfortable Jenna looked when Ava monopolized every panel with stories about empowerment. Emily, Jenna said when I called. I've been wanting to talk to you. I didn't even need to explain. Jenna had received the same screenshots, the same article, and she had questions. Not just about Ava's affair, but about the money. Turns out, Ava had been quietly funneling sponsorship funds into her personal account for months. She used the group's name to land speaking gigs and brand deals, and never shared a cent with the organization. She made it look like we were a team, Jenna said, but I was just a stepping stone. Now, Jenna was ready to speak up too. Together, we gathered records, payment receipts, and screenshots. We compiled statements from former group members who had been pushed out when they questioned Ava's shady dealings. Within a week, a second exposé went live. The False Feminist, How One Woman Used Girl Boss Culture to Hide Her Scams. It hit harder than the wedding drama. Because now, it wasn't just personal. It was professional. It was public. It was national. News outlets picked it up. Business podcasts dissected it. A feminist speaker even tweeted, "This is what happens when you weaponize sisterhood for clout." Emily, we stand with you. I didn't expect the flood of support that came next. Hundreds of women messaged me. Some had been cheated on, some had been scammed. Many had been betrayed by someone they thought was a friend, but all of them said the same thing. Thank you for saying something. Thank you for not letting her get away with it. Thank you for not staying silent. Their messages became my fuel. And suddenly, the girl who got humiliated at the altar, she was being invited to speak. On podcasts, on panels. Even a TEDx event sent an inquiry. But the wildest call came from a publisher. They wanted me to write a book. Not a memoir, the editor explained. A guide, a warning, a story of how women can recover, rebuild, and reclaim their voices after betrayal. I laughed at first. Me? A guide? But then I thought about it. Everything I'd been through, everything I'd uncovered, everything I'd done to turn pain into purpose. Maybe this wasn't just about Ava or Adam anymore. Maybe this was about all of us. The women who'd been told to take the high road while someone else played dirty. The women told to move on when they hadn't even had a chance to speak. I said yes. And just like that, the next chapter of my life began. But not before one final twist. Ava tried to file a cease and desist, through a lawyer no less. The letter accused me of slander, emotional distress, and reputational sabotage. I handed it to my attorney. He laughed. This isn't even legally coherent. We didn't just ignore it, we responded and made it very clear. Any attempt to silence me would only further prove her guilt. The letter was quietly withdrawn within 3 days. And Ava? She went dark again. Her social accounts, her website, even her influencer partnerships, all gone. She thought she could wear white to my wedding and come out untouched. She thought she could use me, bury me, replace me. But she didn't know who she was dealing with, because some women break when they're betrayed, and some become unstoppable. There's something sacred about rock bottom, not because it's peaceful, but because you finally stop pretending. There are no masks, no filters, just raw, painful, undeniable truth. And once you've seen it, nothing scares you anymore. In the weeks that followed the collapse of my wedding, my relationship, and what felt like half of my life, I wasn't just surviving. I was awakening. Yes, I had lost Adam. Yes, Ava had betrayed me. Yes, my private humiliation had been turned into a viral public spectacle. But I was still here. And that meant something. Every morning, I woke up early, before the emails, before the headlines, before the noise. I journaled, I meditated, I cried. Some days the grief hit like a truck. Other days I felt weightless, like I had been freed from a prison I didn't realize I was in. One morning, I stared into the mirror and realized something shocking. I looked better, not thinner, not glammed up, better. Alive, present, awake. And I knew why, because I was no longer shrinking myself for anyone else. Adam always wanted the polished version of me, the version who laughed at his jokes, nodded during his business rants, and wore the clothes he picked out because they photographed better. Ava always fed off my shine, until she found a way to steal it. But now, there was no one left to perform for. It was just me. And that terrified them. The book deal moved fast. The publisher wanted an outline within 2 weeks. I called it The Last Bride Standing. Not a pity memoir, a survival guide for women who've been betrayed, belittled, and burned. Each chapter was themed after a part of the wedding that never happened. The dress, the vows, the aisle, the exit. I wrote about shame, about gaslighting, about trusting your intuition even when it's whispering. And I didn't hold back. I told them about the panic attacks I had during wedding planning but brushed off as normal stress. I wrote about the time Ava told me, "You're so lucky to have a guy like Adam. Some of us are always the bridesmaid." I shared how I used to skip dinners just to look better in a dress Adam picked out 6 sizes too small. And when I turned in the manuscript, I felt like I'd shed a second skin. My editor called me the next morning, crying, "Emily, this is going to help so many women." It wasn't just a book, it was a reckoning. But something unexpected happened during all of this, something that caught me off guard more than Ava's betrayal or Adam's cowardice. Michael, Adam's brother. He never once pushed, never once asked me to forget. He just showed up, quietly, respectfully, steadily. We started going on walks, sharing books, debating movies. It was easy, natural. One night after a late dinner, he walked me to my door and said, "You don't have to keep punishing yourself by shutting everyone out." I froze. "Is that what you think I'm doing?" I think you're protecting yourself, he said gently, but you don't have to do it alone. I didn't answer, but I didn't close the door either, because deep down, I wanted to believe him. A few days later, we went hiking. The same trail Adam used to complain about because nature's boring. The sun was setting. We reached the lookout point, and I finally turned to Michael. I was never good enough for Adam, I said quietly, and I tried so hard to be. Michael didn't flinch. You were too good for him. That's why he ran. The words hit me like a wave, and for the first time in months, I let myself believe it. He kissed me that night. It wasn't fireworks, it wasn't chaos. It was warm, safe, right? But we took it slow, because this time I wanted to build something real. Not a fantasy wrapped in expensive tuxedos and Pinterest boards. Meanwhile, Ava had gone underground. Her influencer brand was gone. Her networking group dissolved. Sponsors fled. Podcasts removed episodes featuring her. She tried to reach out to a mutual friend, claiming she was suicidal and felt misunderstood. I didn't respond. Because the truth is, I didn't hate her anymore. I pitied her. She hadn't just lost me. She lost her mask. And once the world saw the real Ava, no amount of makeup or filters could cover the rot underneath. Adam? He was last seen trying to pitch a new startup to investors. But with a fraud investigation pending and no credibility left, even his dad, a wealthy corporate attorney, refused to help him. His company was dissolved. His legacy, ashes. And me? I wasn't just surviving. I was winning. When the book launched, it hit bestseller lists in 2 weeks. I was invited to speak at women's conferences. I did panels on healing, betrayal, and female empowerment. I got emails from women in Paris, Tokyo, Mexico City, all saying the same thing. Thank you for telling the truth. And one message stood out. It came from a woman in her 60s. I stayed with a man who cheated on me for 20 years, she wrote. Your story made me walk away. For the first time in my life, I feel free. Thank you. That one message? It made everything worth it. All the pain, the public shame, the headlines, the betrayal. Because my voice, once silenced by manipulation and guilt, had finally found its volume, and it was shaking walls. All this time, they thought I was just a girl with a broken heart, a naive bride abandoned at the altar. But what they never knew, what they couldn't imagine, was that I had a secret, and it changed everything. It started 2 months before the wedding. I was running late to a client meeting when I fainted in the parking garage. Not just dizzy or lightheaded, completely out cold. When I woke up in the ER, the nurse gave me a smile and a strange look. You didn't know, she asked. Know what? I asked back. You're pregnant. The words hit me like thunder. Pregnant. I hadn't planned for it. Adam and I had talked about starting a family someday, but I never expected it to happen like this. Not in the middle of work chaos. Not in the middle of a life I was still trying to perfect. I didn't tell anyone, not even Rachel, not even my own mother. Why? Because deep down, I wasn't sure if I trusted Adam enough to build a life with him. Something in my gut had been stirring for months, a quiet unease that refused to be silenced. So I waited. I kept it to myself. I told myself I would decide after the wedding. Then everything blew up. Ava, the photo, the betrayal. And suddenly, it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about this tiny life I was now responsible for, this innocent being growing inside me while the people I loved most destroyed everything I thought was real. In the days after the failed wedding, I debated what to do. Should I tell Adam? Should I keep the baby? Could I even raise a child in the middle of this chaos? But then one night, I felt a flutter, a tiny kick. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't alone. I never had been. This child, they weren't a mistake. They were the reason I had kept fighting. They were the anchor that kept me from sinking into despair. They were the real final surprise no one saw coming. And now, it was time to stop hiding. I went public, not on social media, not through a press release, but in a quiet interview with the same journalist who broke the story about Adam's fraud and Ava's lies. I told her everything, the ER visit, the secret I kept, the decision I made to move forward, on my own. The article was titled, The Last Bride Standing and the Baby She Chose to Protect. It was raw, honest, vulnerable, and once again, the internet exploded. Some people praised me, she's a warrior. Others judged me, she should have told the father. And some reached out with pure love, I raised my daughter alone too. You've got this, Emily. But the response that truly shook me? Adam. I received a single email from him. Subject line: "You kept my child from me?" Just one sentence inside. How could you be so heartless? I stared at the screen for a long time, and then I laughed. Heartless? From the man who slept with my best friend, then had the audacity to try to gaslight me at the altar? I didn't respond. Not out of fear, but because he didn't deserve a response. I wasn't going to fight with him. I wasn't going to engage in some emotional tug-of-war. If he wanted to be part of this child's life, he could go through the proper legal channels. But he wouldn't get the privilege of knowing anything else about me. Not my doctor's appointments. Not my cravings. Not even the gender. He lost those rights the moment he betrayed me. Michael found out shortly after. He showed up at my door one evening, holding flowers and a small box of macarons, my new pregnancy obsession. "You could have told me," he said gently. "I was scared," I admitted, "and I didn't want anyone to look at me like I was broken." He looked straight into my eyes. "You're not broken. You're a force of nature." He stepped closer, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Whatever you need, doctor visits, nursery shopping, midnight cravings, I'm here. If you'll let me be." I cried for the first time in weeks. Not because I was sad, because for once I felt safe. Michael never tried to step into Adam's shoes. He never pushed or pressured. He just stood by me, strong and quiet, offering me the one thing I hadn't had in a long time: choice. This baby didn't make me weaker. They made me sharper, more focused, more dangerous in the best way possible. Because now, everything I did, every word I wrote, every woman I helped, was for them. They were going to grow up knowing strength, not performance, resilience, not silence, truth, not pretense. I had a new reason to live boldly, and soon the world would see. I wasn't just a woman scorned. I was a mother, a leader. And the woman Ava and Adam never saw coming. I used to think power looked like confidence in a boardroom, high heels, sharp lipstick, commanding silence when you walked into a room. But now I know better. Real power? It's rebuilding yourself in silence when no one is clapping. It's choosing to heal instead of hate. It's finding strength in your own skin, even after you've been stripped bare. And it all began the day I stepped into a fitting room, 5 months pregnant, standing under harsh fluorescent lights with a dress that clung too tightly across my stomach. I was trying on maternity wear, and nothing fit. My body felt foreign, swollen, unfamiliar. I sat down on the little bench, looked at my reflection, and for the first time in weeks, I broke. Tears streamed down my cheeks, not because I hated how I looked, but because for the first time I was facing her, the woman I had become. Not Emily the betrayed, not Emily the ex-fiancé, not Emily the scandal headline, but just me. Raw, vulnerable, real. And then something shifted. I stood up, looked at myself again, this time with softer eyes. "You're doing it," I whispered to the mirror. "You're surviving. You're creating life. You're stronger than they ever gave you credit for." That's when I made the decision. No more hiding. If Ava could flaunt a fake version of herself for years, I could damn well show up as my truest self and make no apology for it. So I started over. The first thing I did? A full transformation. Not to impress anyone, but because I wanted to look in the mirror and see a warrior staring back. I chopped my long hair, once something Adam always told me to keep feminine and flowing. Now it was shoulder length, edgy, and powerful. I stopped wearing beige. I started wearing bold, saturated reds, deep greens, fierce blacks, clothes that wrapped around my changing body like armor. I hired a new branding photographer, female, independent, talented as hell. We shot an entire new set of author portraits, not posed, not stiff, just me, barefoot, pregnant, laughing in the rain, writing in a sunlit cafe, holding my belly in a power suit on top of a rooftop downtown. I posted them, and the world noticed. Women messaged me saying, "You make pregnancy look like a revolution." That's exactly how it felt. I booked speaking events. I began working with nonprofits helping single mothers start their own businesses. I got invited to appear on national morning shows, not to gossip but to empower. Every headline shifted. No more jilted bride narratives. Now it was author, advocate, and soon-to-be mom, Emily Carter's comeback. I even landed a feature in a major magazine. They called it the Rebirth issue. But my favorite part? The photo they ran. It wasn't retouched. It showed the stretch marks, the soft curve of my belly, my hand resting protectively over it, and that look in my eyes? It wasn't sadness. It was power. Ava saw it too. She'd started showing up in random comment sections again, trying to regain relevance. She posted a photo from a cheap spa with the caption, "Healing is a journey, not a headline." Subtle shade, of course. She still didn't get it. Healing isn't about pretending, it's about transforming. One night, I got invited to a gala, a huge event in the city for women in tech and entrepreneurship. The same kind of gala I once imagined attending on Adam's arm, with Ava smiling smugly by my side. But now, I was going alone. Well, not entirely alone. Michael offered to come with me. Not as a date, as a partner. Someone who had stood by through the mess, never asking for more than I was ready to give. He met me at the bottom of my building that night. His eyes widened when he saw me. "You look unstoppable," he said. I smiled. That's the point. I wore a deep emerald gown that hugged every curve, baby bump and all. My hair in soft waves, skin glowing with purpose. I wasn't hiding the pregnancy. I was leading with it. We entered the gala and for the first time, heads turned. Not because of scandal, but because of strength. People came up to me all night, women in tears, young girls asking for advice, CEOs handing me cards and saying, "We need your voice at our next event." And then, near the dessert table, I saw her. Ava. Dressed in muted pink, smaller than I remembered, diminished. She tried to look confident, but her eyes gave her away. She walked toward me, hesitant. "Emily," I turned, face calm, eyes direct. "Yes?" I wanted to say you look different." I smiled. "I am." She nodded. "Congratulations, by the way, on everything." There it was, the last crumb of control she tried to cling to, but it had no weight anymore. Because her validation meant nothing. I leaned in slightly. "Thank you," I said, "but I didn't do this for congratulations." She blinked. "Then what for?" I stepped back, held my belly with one hand. For her. Ava froze, and for the first time she had no words. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about rising, becoming, reclaiming everything they tried to take, and walking through fire, pregnant, powerful, and unapologetic. There's a strange kind of silence that falls over a room right before a public reckoning. It's not fear, exactly. It's not even tension. It's anticipation. The quiet before thunder. And I knew that silence well. Because tonight I wasn't just a guest at a gala. I was the keynote speaker. 6 months pregnant, dressed in a tailored black jumpsuit, hair swept back, a subtle gold necklace that read "Rising." The auditorium was packed. Journalists, influencers, entrepreneurs, and women from every walk of life who had followed my journey since the day everything unraveled. The theme of the event? Reclaiming the narrative. And I was the final act. The moment I stepped onto the stage, the crowd fell quiet. No one cheered. No one clapped yet. They waited, watched, because the world knew me as the woman who had been betrayed. But they were about to see me as the woman who rose. I stood behind the clear podium, hands steady, heart calm. "I was supposed to be married 9 months ago," I began, voice steady but firm. Instead, I walked away from a wedding and into my power. The room was still. I told them everything. Not the tabloid version, not the dramatic headlines, the truth. I talked about betrayal, about shame, about the deep loneliness that comes from watching everything you built collapse in front of your eyes and still choosing to get up. I talked about being pregnant and afraid. I talked about healing without apology. And then I told them about Ava. Not to drag her, but to liberate myself. There was a time when I would have done anything to protect her, I said. Even from herself. I was loyal beyond logic. I believed in friendship like religion, and then she slept with the man I was supposed to marry and wore white to my wedding. Gasps. But no one laughed, because this wasn't petty. This was pain dressed in truth. And the hardest part? I continued. It wasn't losing them. It was realizing I had been dimming my own light just to make them comfortable. I had made myself smaller so they wouldn't feel insecure, and still, they tried to erase me. I paused, let the weight of it settle. But here's what they didn't expect. I looked out over the crowd. They didn't expect me to write the book. They didn't expect me to launch a foundation. They didn't expect me to be here on this stage, with a baby on the way and nothing left to prove. The applause erupted. But I wasn't finished. There was one final twist. I took a step away from the podium, and a screen behind me lit up. It was a short video, a montage, clips of women who had written to me, sent in voice memos, messages, testimonies. From single moms, from women leaving abusive marriages, from college girls calling off engagements, from grandmothers saying, "I wish I had your courage when I was your age." I stood in silence and watched it with everyone else, and when the video ended, the lights came back up, and she was there. Ava, sitting 2 rows from the front. Of course she came. The invitation wasn't sent to her. But she came. Maybe she thought she could spin it. Maybe she thought this was her redemption arc. Or maybe she just wanted to see if I would flinch, but I didn't. When the lights settled and I returned to the mic, I looked right at her, and I smiled. Some people think forgiveness means forgetting, that healing means silence. But I disagree. I think healing is telling the story and owning it so fully that it can never be used against you again. A pause. I don't hate anyone in this story, not anymore. But I will never apologize for telling the truth. I didn't come here tonight to relive my pain. I came here to reclaim it. Standing ovation. This time it wasn't for the drama, it was for the clarity. The courage. The rebirth. After the speech, people swarmed. Hugs, selfies, handshakes, book deals, speaking invitations, and Ava? She slipped out the side door. Not a word, not a glance. She didn't need to be dragged through the mud anymore. She had already buried herself in it. Later that night, backstage, I sat on a velvet bench, sipping ginger tea. Michael came to find me. He leaned down, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "You did it." "No," I said, smiling, "we did." He knelt down and placed his hand gently on my belly, and so did she. In that moment, everything made sense. The heartbreak, the humiliation, the loss. It had all been leading to this. Not revenge, redemption. Because some people lose everything and crumble. Others, they rebuild. Louder, wiser, bolder. I had been a shattered bride. But now, I was the voice no one could silence. The woman they never saw coming. There's a moment, after the storm has passed, when the sun doesn't just shine, it pierces. It doesn't ask for permission, it doesn't need forgiveness, it simply shows up, just like I did. 7 months after the wedding I stood on a different kind of stage, not a ballroom, not a press conference, not a TEDx event, but a hospital room. Hair tied up, no makeup, heartbeat monitor beeping rhythmically in the background. I was about to meet my daughter. There were no cameras, no headlines, no applause, just breath. Tension. Then the sound that shattered every last piece of the girl I used to be, her cry. One long, raw, powerful cry, like she had already inherited my fire. I held her against my chest, my heart thundering. Her skin was soft, her fingers wrapped tightly around one of mine. And I whispered, "They tried to destroy me, and they gave me you instead." I named her Aria. It means melody, because that's what she was to me, a new song. One I wrote myself. No lies, no betrayal, just truth. The days that followed were quiet and sacred. Late-night feedings, diaper disasters, crying fits that ended in laughter. And Michael was there for all of it. Never once trying to take over, never once acting like a placeholder. Just present. Patient. Loving. A few weeks later, he brought over a small gift box. "I know it's early," he said, "but this isn't for Aria. It's for you." Inside was a thin gold bracelet, engraved with one word, unshaken. "I saw that word in your book," he said. It stayed with me. It stayed with me too, because for all the betrayal, all the loss, all the chaos, I had never broken. I had bent, I had cried, but I had not shattered. And that mattered more than anyone knew. Soon after, I was invited to be the closing speaker at a global women's summit in New York City. All expenses paid, live-streamed worldwide, 1 million viewers, and I said yes. Not because I wanted the spotlight, but because I had something to say to every woman who had ever been lied to, cheated on, left behind, laughed at, shamed, silenced. The auditorium was packed. I walked onto the stage holding Aria. The crowd gasped, then erupted. But I held up one hand and the room went quiet. "I was supposed to be married 1 year ago," I began. "Instead, I became something so much more powerful than a wife. I became whole." I looked down at Aria. She blinked up at me, calm and curious. I was lied to, betrayed, made to feel like I wasn't enough, and for a moment, I believed them. But then I remembered, no one gets to tell you who you are. The crowd held their breath. I told them everything. How Ava wore white to my wedding, how Adam slept with her the night before, how I stood at the altar and chose truth over tradition, how I lost the life I thought I wanted and got the life I was destined for. I didn't get a happy ending, I said. I created one. A standing ovation. But this time it didn't shake me, because the truth was, I didn't need their applause. I had already won. Later that night, as the city lights glowed outside our hotel window, I rocked Arya to sleep. I thought about all the versions of me that had died in the past year. The girl who begged for love, the woman who feared rejection, the bride who thought she needed validation. They were gone, and in their place stood someone new. Someone whole. Someone unshaken. I whispered into Arya's ear, "You will never have to dim your light to be loved." And I meant every word. This wasn't just a comeback story. It was a reminder to every woman who has ever been torn apart by people she trusted. You are not weak for breaking down. You are strong for rebuilding. You are not foolish for loving the wrong people. You are wise for learning how to love yourself. You are not just someone's wife, sister, daughter, or friend. You are your own revolution. So here's what I want to leave you with. Whether you're 22 and heartbroken, 35 and rediscovering yourself, or 60 and finally walking away from something that never served you, you don't need their apology. You don't need their permission. You don't need their seat at the table. Build your own damn table. Set it on fire if you must. But never, ever shrink yourself again. Because you are the final surprise no one saw coming. You are the twist in the story. You are the thunder after silence. And just like me, you are rising.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.